Now this will tell us. And that's pretty conclusive. Still going. Close. I think he got it down.
How strong is he?
Back to the Pick and Go Rugby podcast. Yes, I am Patrick Jones. I have returned from the wilderness after 3 weeks away, refreshed and energised for the business end of the season. And as we get ready to preview a huge weekend of rugby, very pleased to be joined to my left by Richard Lady. Thanks for holding the ship down in my absence, Richard.
Not a problem, Patrick. Yeah, it's good to have you back. We had a bit of fun. We had a couple of pretty tough weeks, one in particular, but we're slowly just bouncing our way back, and hopefully we'll be able to find a one or two this weekend.
Yeah, no, it's always important to peak for the business end of the season, so hopefully we're heading in the right direction. And also joined this week by probably the most consistent member of the Pick and Go podcast at this stage, James Marshall, calling in once again. Thanks very much for joining us again, James. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Thanks for inviting me back on. I feel like the worse I pick, the more invites I get to come back. My last couple of weeks have been terrible with my tips, but like you said, it's all about the business end of the season. So these next 2 weeks, I'm going to be on fire.
Yeah. No, if we finish 3 out of 3 for the season, no one will remember earlier in the year. So that's the aim. And I'm glad you mentioned poor tips, because you'll notice no sign of Paul Moati floating around anywhere. You tip 3 value bets below $2 and they all lose, you get a week suspension. That's the rule on this podcast. So Paul's sitting in the naughty boys chair this week. May or may not be back next week. We'll see. But it's just the three of us holding down the fort this week. And we've got obviously plenty to talk about, because it's been a huge weekend of footy around the country last week and plenty coming up this week. Obviously, we're going to start in Paitoa on Monday, where Manawatu kicked their pre-season campaign off with a huge 33-26 victory over Hawke's Bay. We're not actually going to do that, but I just have to get mentioned in whenever Manawatu get a win. So just note that down for later in the season when we get onto the NPC. But we will start actually on Friday night in Christchurch, where the Crusaders took care of the Reds pretty comfortably in the end. Maybe a little bit shaky to start with. I was actually on a flight for the first probably 45, 50 minutes of this game and got off and checked the score, and it was pretty close. I was like, this could be a bit interesting. Chuck Sky go on my phone at baggage claim, and then the Crusaders went and scored 3 tries in about 5 minutes, I think it was. So I don't know, what do you think, Richard, was your bigger concern? Maybe how long they sort of took to get going, or just at the end of the game and Crusaders doing Crusaders things?
Yeah, not really. No, I mean, it was a big one in the end. They sort of, you wouldn't say it was shaky as such. I think the Reds sort of just chipped away, got a couple of penalties and picked up a couple of nice tries. They had that try to Dalguna at the start of the second half, that 2 minutes in the second half, where I was like, this could get interesting. I went quite heavy on the plus for the game, so I was sort of like, this is sort of shaping all right. But yeah, the likes of Moanga and sort of Severie stepped up, had their moments, and it was pretty typical sort of Crusaders performance, just in that classic sort of running away with it in the final sort of 10, 20 minutes. So not too much to sort of worry about there, and they'll just be looking ahead to a big game this weekend, I think.
Yeah, I heard you guys all sort of last week talking about these teams with the big pluses or minuses. They might just want to sort of tick the box and move on to next week. Do you think that was the attitude from the Crusaders for a little bit, James? They'd just be happy to get the win no matter how it comes and worry about the Chiefs?
Yeah, not real. I just felt like that was a pretty intense game, to be fair, and I sort of was playing out how I was expecting. But like you've mentioned, the Crusaders just have that ability to flick a switch, especially when their bench come on. The depth in their squad compared to the Reds was probably the difference. That's where you could really notice the difference in the way the teams were playing. But to start that game, I thought the Reds were really physical. There's some massive collisions in that game, and it was nice to watch a game without hearing the TMO ask for a couple of checks, and there was no slow-mos on any hits or anything, no cards. So it was quite refreshing to watch a game like that with it still being really physical.
Yeah, no, for sure. There was plenty of action there, and I think Brad Thorne, although we'll get onto the Red season grade in a second, but even though they maybe didn't quite get the wins they were hoping to against New Zealand teams, the way the Reds have sort of kicked on without, they've had a few injuries towards the end of the year, they can't be displeased with the performance they put up in Christchurch the last 2 weeks, especially. So that's got to be something for them. Obviously, a bit of a sour note for the Crusaders, though. Ethan Blackadder hobbling off with what looked like a reasonably annoying shoulder injury. How big's that, do you think, for the Crusaders' chances going forward, James? He's obviously massive for sort of the mentality of the forward pack. He gets stuck in everywhere. Do you think they'll feel his loss?
I think they will. He is a massive loss. He's such a such a champion, man. He won Crusader of the Year, voted by the players and by the management. Everyone down there loves him. His work doesn't go unnoticed down there. And I thought he was having another massive game in the weekend. He was on fire, carrying hard, getting stuck into everything. But so gutted for him. I felt like he was right in that frame for that All Black number 6 spot. Looks like it's confirmed he's dislocated his shoulder and he will be having surgery. So he won't be back till next Super Rugby season, which is absolutely gutting for him. We'll miss out on all the internationals. So, but speaking to him on the Woolad podcast at the start of the year, he mentioned that how much he loves the injury process, loves coming back on the rehab, loves trying to be better, loves that whole journey. So there's no doubt he will be coming back a better player and just in time for the World Cup, I think.
Yeah, no, that is pretty gutting. But I'm sure I'm sure we'll get a great Rocky style montage out of all the hills he'll be climbing up and wild animals he'll be chasing or whatever he does to get that shoulder back in shape. So yeah, all the best because he had been having an awesome season, and I certainly had him penciled into my loose forward trio for the Irish season. So that's a bit of a loss. But we'll get try and move on reasonably quickly because we do want to get to these semi-finals. So just quickly, you guys went through and gave the teams who we bidded farewell to last week a bit of a grade for the season. I think everyone gave just C's to every team. Is that what I'm remembering correctly? So
pretty much.
Well,
C's,
well, are you giving the Reds a C as well, Richard?
No, I was pretty disappointed with the Reds,
Okay.
actually. I might give them I'm not going to give them a pass. I'll give them a D. They sort of came in as touted as the best Australian team. They were unable to get a win against the New Zealand teams, which every other Australian team ended up getting one. They had that big loss to the Highlanders. Sort of finished the season. I know, as you said, I think they wouldn't be too disappointed by their last couple of performances against the Crusaders. But yeah, I had them sort of as the top Australian team, and they came in at third. So obviously a few injuries didn't play to their sort of in their favour. But yeah, I'm going to give them a D. Not a pass for me.
You a bit of a harsh taskmaster as well here, James.
Geez, a D is extremely harsh, I think. I had them at a C plus. I thought, obviously, a little bit disappointed I probably expect them to finish a little bit higher as well, but I think they were absolutely hammered with injuries, and these Aussie teams just probably don't have the depth that the New Zealand teams do. And I thought they were still really competitive in all the games that they played, and played some really good footy, especially when they had their best side on the park. So, I gave them a C plus. I thought they were okay, but I did expect a little bit more.
Yeah, no, that's probably fair. I'll probably split the difference and go a C minus. I think you have to factor in, especially the injury to James O'Connor came at the worst possible time of year as they were getting ready to face all the New Zealand teams. I don't know how different their season would have looked if he was available for the last 6 weeks. But
Tupou as well.
Yeah, of course. He's literally massive and figuratively. So yeah, he's another one. But I do think, like, in saying all that, they did show great heart, and Brad Thorne's obviously got them all rowing in the same direction. But if anyone's not going to be happy with a few glorious losses, it's Brad Thorne, right? Like, he wants to be winning games. He wouldn't have gone down there going, as long as we can keep within 20 boys, I'll be happy with that. He'll be as mad as anyone. So I think that there's some positives to take from the season. But we look at where they were last season, where they had that great win over the Brumbies at Suncorp in the Super Rugby Australia final. They'll see this as a step back. So still, there's some things they can take into 2023, and presuming they get a full season out of O'Connor and Tupou. I'm not quite sure what the contract situation there is with Tupou, but I think he's hanging around. They certainly have a bit of a springboard, but I think they'll see this as a step back. They were probably hoping to be playing footy this weekend, I imagine, when they started the season. So small not, but there is some mitigating circumstances. I'll sit firmly on the fence there for that one. So.
It's good that we're not all, we've all seen it in different.
Yeah.
Last week.
Don't worry, I'll be giving out a much higher grade than a C when we get onto the next team that was eliminated, and we'll move on to that now, because pretty entertaining game I thought in Hamilton on Saturday Arvo to kick off the triple header we had there. Waratahs sort of came firing out of the blocks and gave the Chiefs a bit of a scare for a while there, and then I found it a bit of a hard game to get a read on. I wasn't sure if the Chiefs just had some really impressive players and they got the moments right at the right time, or whether they were really controlling that game and the Waratahs were the ones who were sort of just counter-punching at the right times. What sort of read did you get on this one, Richard?
Yeah, I wouldn't say the Chiefs controlled the game. I mean, obviously came in hot, started strong with that Brad Weber try very early on, but the Waratahs sort of hit back. But the Waratahs probably just almost kept them in the game a little bit. That
Mhm.
Neckerville try, they would sort of try
Yeah.
to. Ed made the first 5. He didn't have his greatest game. He missed a couple of kickable penalties and gave away that try there. So if you think if that try hadn't been scored and 1 or 2 of those penalties had been kicked, I think it would have been probably about a six point game at halftime. So even less than that. So Chiefs, they're still. I mean, they got the job done and convincingly in the end. Sort of ran away with it almost Crusaders style in that final sort of 20 minutes. But I'm still not completely sold on them coming into this week. They just haven't been. They're sort of getting better every week,
Mhm.
but I think they've sort of they haven't seen the best of them, and whether we will this week or not, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, the Waratahs, kudos to them. They just were hands down. We were talking about last week. They're most improved team this season, and they kept in it. They had scored that great try. Hooper set up for the
For Will Harris.
Will Harris,
Yeah. He's
So they
been a real find this
showed
season
what they're
as well.
capable
Yeah.
of. So yeah, not sold on the Chiefs sort of really controlled it. I think the Tars probably let them and gave them a few easy points there. So
Yeah, fair enough. How about you, James? What was your sort of sense from initially watching this game?
Yeah, a little bit similar. I feel like the Chiefs do sort of rely on those moments in a game. They've got so many players who can create something out of nothing, and they can do that. And I feel like that's the danger probably for the Crusaders this weekend, being able to shut down those threats because, like we saw, they can score points pretty quickly. But I do feel like you guys they don't feel like they've really controlled a game and really just dominated it and had complete control of it. So they're a little bit more reliant on a little moment of magic, which they're well and truly capable of.
Yeah, no, I certainly I'm sort of subscribing to that theory. I think while we haven't seen the best of them, it's not a bad time of year to be having Brady Retallick playing sort of 80 minutes of rugby again. Sam Cane's named on the bench this week, so I do think we can see an 80-minute performance out of them. We have in the past. Like obviously, I think if any guy can get a team motivated to play 80 minutes, Clayton McMillan sort of right up towards the top of that list of guys who'll have the right game plan. But yeah, just if you make some of those mistakes that they made against the Crusaders, and that's Lester Fanganuku or Sever Reese on the end of some of those balls, they're going 90 meters, that sort of thing. So yeah, an interesting one from the Chiefs. But overall, I think when you're scoring almost 40 points in this quarterfinal against a pretty on form side in the Waratahs, and I was surprised to hear, I think it was Brad Weber or someone say like it was the first home knockout game he'd played for the Chiefs. One of the guys had been around there for a while, so
yeah, I think the commentators sort of saying, "Oh, the Chiefs are back and play off," at the start of the game, and I didn't actually hear when they had last played, but yeah, it must have been.
Yeah, I sort of think of them as being a perennial contender pretty much from the start of that Rennie era 10 years ago. But yeah, that was their first knockout win at FMG for a while, so. Yeah, that's certainly something. But yeah, I think we'll just touch on the Waratahs. I imagine we're all going to be fairly effusive in our praise for what Coleman and the crew have done for them this season after what was a pretty disastrous 2021, right?
Yeah. They lost every game, and points differential was in the
thousands, I think.
Yeah, felt like it. So yeah, I mean, I had B+ here, but I'm actually going to give them an A-. I think like they just when you consider where they've come from and expectations, they'd be really happy with where they are. Second best team in Australia. Got a couple of wins against New Zealand teams. One against the Crusaders, that's worth a couple of points, points in itself. So yeah, I think they'd be really happy where they are and hoping that they can kind of build from that next season.
For sure. You handing out an A here as well, James?
No, I went B+. That's what I put down. I remember talking to Dave Parecki, who's the hooker, at the start of the year, and he was very positive at the start of the year, saying that they'll be in contention come playoffs time. I thought he was having a laugh. I thought they were absolutely no chance. I thought they'll be way more down the wooden spoon end of the table, but they have been a real surprise package. I just can't go handing out A's for teams that are losing in the quarterfinals, no matter how bad they were the previous year. But they have been really impressive, and like we've already spoken about, the most improved side in the comp by miles.
Yeah, for sure. I am going to give them an A just because I think if you realistically looked at them before the season and said what's the best case scenario for the Waratahs, this was probably about as good as it gets, right? Like, they've unearthed a lot of young talents. Like Tana Emid seems to have really grabbed that 10 jersey, and I imagine he's just going to be the 10 of the future. Ben Donaldson probably going to get a run in the 15 jersey. Obviously, a couple of
pretty few when he's fit.
Yeah, as well.
He's great to watch.
yeah, they've got some great loose forwards going around. Will Harris, I've already touched on, a couple of others as well. So I think they're in a really good spot. Darren Coleman shown he knows how to get a rugby team playing some good footy. So yeah, obviously they'd like to be playing semi-finals and finals footy, but it's all things considered, I think you got to be very happy if you're a New South Wales fan after what we've seen for them this season, and gives them a good springboard into 2023. So yeah, I'll be a bit generous with my grade here and go an A.
Even though you, Patrick?
They did, but we've still got the Hurricanes and Highlanders to get to. Don't worry. Yeah, even though they did lose by 24 points in a quarterfinal, but so it's all about context, right? So yeah, we'll move on because this is, I think, is a game that there's certainly one key turning point as we move to Eden Park on Saturday evening, 7:05. I don't know. Yeah, that first 20 minutes, it was a bit nervy. The Blues is this the old Blues? Are they going to sort of get a bit tight when it came to finals footy? But then I don't know if it was the red card or the Blues realising they had Beauden Barrett, Rico Ioane, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, everyone else in the back line. They sort of put their foot down, and yeah, there's no catching them when they're playing footy like that, right, James?
Yeah, 100%. I felt like the Highlanders were really just hanging on, even though it was close, and it looked like it could have been one of those games where it might get to the point where it gets really niggly for the Blues. But yeah, I think it was just a matter of time before the Blues started to open up on that game, and it sort of happened after that red card. But even with that red card, I think it still would have happened anyway. Or without that red card, I still think it would have happened anyway. And yeah, interesting around those red cards. It's getting so hard now when players are ducking into the contact and being able to avoid a shoulder to the head. It does get pretty tricky, but those are the rules, and people have to be way more careful than they are. Make sure they're wrapping, and there's a lot to it, eh?
Yeah, I don't want to get into a big red card debate because we've had plenty of those on pretty much every rugby podcast this season. But you think about, like, in the NFL, if you as a running back or someone, if you lower your head to go into contact, that's a 15-yard penalty on the offensive player. I wonder if rugby is going to have to sort of look into something around that, just because it's so easy now. You just get your head down around your waist, and you're pretty much guaranteed to collect some sort of limb or something on the way through. So maybe something to consider, because I know the people at Sansa do listen to this podcast, so tuck that away in your notebook. But did you feel the sort of same around that game, Richard? It was just a matter of time before the Blues got their hands on some ball, and then
it wasn't really working for them the first 20 minutes. Even that first, I think it was the first 10 minutes of that red card. The Highlanders were up 3-0 in that period, and they were up 6-0 in the game. And then it just took a couple of moments of brilliance from Beauden and the Ioanes to sort of, and once that those two tries had scored, it sort of felt like, the Blues are here. But I think the Blues will be a little bit worried about that first 20 minutes. Just that first 20 minutes. Yeah. They're not going to be able to get away with that and be 6-0 down against the likes of, may the Brumbies and the Crusaders or Chiefs, the other four teams. So they'll just be wary. Maybe they're happy they've just got that out of the way, got the sort of that sort of playoffs, the cobwebs have been in the playoffs again. I think it was the first. I can't remember the commentators saying.
Well, you're going to start a big Super Rugby trend debate here.
No. When it was the last time the Blues had a home final, it was like 10 years or something. So they definitely they got the job done and very comfortably in the end. But they'll just be wary of starting like that against these other top four teams.
Yeah. I think if you do some of that against the Brumbies, those threes are probably sevens, right? So that's something to consider. But are you feeling better or worse about the Blues' chances of winning 2 more games after watching that one, James?
I don't think too much changed for me. I still think they're favourites. They'll be glad to get that game out of the way. It was always going to be a niggly game, and hearing Leon McDonald speak after the game, he said he was having a few sleepless nights about it. Obviously, knockout footy, playing the Highlanders, not an easy game to get through, but they'll be definitely happy they got through it. But yeah, like we've spoken about, different beasts this weekend. So I still think they deserve to be favourites to win the comp. And yeah, if I had to be putting a large punt down, it would be on the Blues.
Yeah, another little Patrick's idea committee here, but what do we reckon about? There's been a lot said about the finals format the last week or so with the 8 teams. What do you reckon about letting the top seed pick their opponent for the quarterfinals? Because I don't know. Obviously, it's going to open a can of. I don't know if the Blues, out of those 4 sort of lower seeded times, I don't think they would have picked the Highlanders, right? Certainly before they knew about Aaron Smith and his groin. I think that could add a fun little wrinkle into the first round of the finals next week. Yeah.
Well, we talked.
Who would they have chosen, you reckon?
We were all quite high on the Highlanders last week.
Probably the Reds. Do you reckon?
Yeah, not sure.
The team probably playing with the least confidence.
Yeah, because it's just
coming in with like out of form, most out of form.
Yeah,
I think the Highlanders been exactly in form,
No,
but they're just
but
the sort of team that
Islanders had just lost to the Rebels. They're in terrible form.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe they would have chosen the team that just lost to the Rebels, to be fair. Yeah. I'm looking at this purely as a content creator. I think that would be great. You're sitting around on Monday waiting for the picks
draft.
to be made. Yeah. If you've got some team that get, like, say the Druid got hot and won 4 of their last 5 games and snuck into the 8th spot, no one really wanting to play them or something. Yeah.
They're capable of.
Yeah, none of it's all free of charge stands are. Like, just take it down. I just here for good content. So yeah, make it happen for next season. Yeah. No, I'm but unfortunately, after a bit of positivity around the Blues, we do have to touch on the team that was on the other side of the park on Saturday night. I'm certainly not expecting anyone to give out an A here for their season, but probably a few mitigating factors. Injuries obviously played a part. What's your verdict here, James?
I gave them a C. I initially thought they were going to be the worst New Zealand side, and they were. So I just felt like they didn't have the depth in the squad that all the other Kiwi teams had, and we saw that pretty early on, to be fair. But they limped into the finals. Lucky to get to 8th, really. 4 wins. Pretty disappointing year. So even a C might be quite generous.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that, but yeah. What are you giving them, Richard?
C minus. Yeah, maybe a D plus. I've got C minus. They got a couple of wins, and they did have that sort of, if they probably hadn't lost the Rebels, I think that like last weekend could have been a little bit different. But yeah, I think that would have just been a real hurt on their confidence, and I probably can't give a team that lost the Rebels any higher than a C minus. So. Injuries obviously played their part, but and they like next season, maybe they'll be able to sort of settle on some of these selections, but they'll have a couple of players that sort of stepped up. Probably Makili too, in particular. I thought he was probably their find of the season. Frizzell being out, so if those two can sort of play in the back, is Frizzell still around?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So if those two can sort of play in the back row together next season, I think they'll have a bit of fun. But yeah, C minus.
Yeah, I was pretty high on the Highlanders going into the season. If you go back on our YouTube channel about 3 months, there's a very funny clip in hindsight now where I say they've got a lot of young talent. I reckon Tony Brown can get the best out of them after their Super Rugby Trans-Tasman exploits. I reckon they're making the semis and a good chance of making the final. So, I'm going to go and wipe that from all the internet straight after we finish recording this podcast. So, yeah, I think I've got to give them a D. Look, I know there was some factors there. Obviously, the injuries were massive and everything like that, but just the biggest thing for me was they have a lot of talent in the back line. Like, they have these young guns like Thomas Umaga-Jensen, Connor Garden-Basham in particular. He was going great last year. I was disappointed we didn't get to see a bit more of your mate Denny Solomona as well, James. I thought he could have given them a bit. So just for me, not managing to sort of turn a lot of that talent into something a bit more cohesive is a little disappointing. So it's almost frustrating when you see these guys having these moments and they can't do it for longer. So I'll give them a D. But yeah, the problem is when you've got 5 New Zealand franchises, right? One of them's got to be the bottom of the 5, and that's a pretty high bar still. They're still, I know they lost to the Rebels, but I think if they were playing Super Rugby Australia or whatever, they'd be winning that competition. Well, maybe not the Brumbies, but yeah, they'd be certainly right at the business end. So that's a tough sledding, playing all those New Zealand games early in the season as well. It will be interesting, presuming we like a more blended competition next year, to see what effect that has, not sort of getting stuck with Crusaders, Blues, Hurricanes the first 3 weeks or whatever they had to. If a few of these sort of second-tier New Zealand teams can get off to a bit of a better start. But yeah, no, I'll go with the D for the Highlanders in 2022. And we've only got one more quarterfinal to cover from last week. You've noticed my voice has sort of slowed down, and I'm dreading getting to this one. The first 40 minutes was good in Canberra, right, guys?
This 40 minutes was great. Yeah, they. I said in the podcast last week, they can't afford to. The Hurricanes can't afford to come out slow, and they didn't. They were for one of the rare times this season they came out flying against a good team and got a good early lead. But second half, I don't know. Were they? I think that the Brumbies just sort of grinded away and just sort of showed that they were on a bit of they obviously lost 3 games in a row, coming off the loss to Moana Pacifica. Must have been a good halftime talk to get them sort of back in check. But the Brumbies came out in the second half, especially late in the second half, and played some good footy, scored some good tries. The yellow card to Reyesi didn't probably helped the Hurricanes' chances at
But
that
we're
point in the game.
pretty cooked by that stage anyway. weren't we?
Well, it was sort of that was the sort of nail in the coffin to say any chance of the Hurricanes coming back. So, yeah, I mean, good on them for having a good start, but yeah, it would have been nice to see them pull through. I think I was actually watching the sort of flipping between them and the Warriors, and it got to the point where I had to throw the remote at the Warriors because of the Warriors game. So I was like, I watched the Hurricanes now, and they were up, and I was like, yes, this is great. And then, I think maybe I was the bad luck for those respective teams on Saturday night.
Oh, I still think the Warriors had plenty of bad luck once you switched over, so maybe we can't completely blame you. But I don't know what do you think was the key of that Brumbies comeback, James? Was it the Hurricanes maybe not taking their foot off the gas, but sort of going into prevent mode, or the Brumbies just being a machine you can't stop when they get going downhill like that?
No, I sort of spoke about it last week on the podcast, how important the 4 key guys were going to be with Coles, TJ, Geordie, and Artie all on the field at the same time. And I felt like as soon as Geordie went off with the HIA and Coles and TJ had gone, that's sort of when they really lost their shape, and that's when a lot of those points were scored. So I do think those guys still hold too much importance on the team's success. So Artie can't do it all by himself when he's out there. So I really feel like that was a big part of that momentum shift and Brumbies getting back into that game.
Yeah, I think we definitely noticed right when Geordie wasn't off. It had to go off. It was, I think, as an HIA, but the backline did lose a bit of shape, and his voice is obviously so important out there. And Sam, I was going to say, not only Dane, but Owen Franks. I think we've noticed having the two of them sort of playing in tandem, just like two adults in the room, sort of thing. That like no one messes with them when the Hurricanes pack when they're on the field. And credit to the Brumbies. The Hurricanes, I don't think they had one ruck or breakdown where they got easy ball in that second half. Those locks were in there, getting their feet in places and just making everything an absolute nightmare for the Hurricanes trying to hold on to the ball. So that was...
It sounded like the Brumbies crowd were really getting into it as well. Like, I think they've obviously got a bit of a... like the home fans believe, which is good to see.
Don't know if you heard it was cold in Canberra on Saturday night. That was mentioned once or twice on the broadcast. So yeah, something else to. Yeah. But one thing I did want to ask you guys, I'll start with you, James. Do you think maybe the Hurricanes should have been a bit more aggressive with some of those penalties they got around halfway? They obviously, I know it's a knockout game. You want to get the points on the board, keep turning the threes. But you saw the Brumbies when Owen went to the bin. They had those 2 penalties, went for the corner, scored 2 tries. Do you think maybe the Hurricanes could have controlled the game a bit more if they kept their hands on the ball, had some more possession in Brumbies territory rather than just sort of getting the 3 points, but then the Brumbies could still get their hands back on the ball and get back into their systems?
To be honest, I thought they were doing it really well. I thought they're racking up those points. Brumbies are a hard team to score against off a maul or a 5-metre line out. Yeah. They do have good defence there. When you've got Geordie Barrett on the field, I feel like the Hurricanes haven't utilised that enough this year. Halfway penalty, you can either kick it to around the 22, low percentage chance to score points, but Geordie's got pretty high accuracy from around halfway, going up in the threes. I thought they were really controlling the game really well up until that sort of 20-minute mark when they rotated the subs. And you mentioned how cold it was. I feel like the bench came on cold. They didn't add that impact that they had been all year. The Hurricanes, when they've been bringing their bench on, have been really bringing the energy and changing the speed of the game. In the weekend, I thought they were really disappointing. So it must have been a little bit of frostbite on that bench, I reckon.
Yeah, there was one, I think they cut to Ruben on the bench or something that had about 3 puffer jackets on at one stage. So yeah, it was definitely a bit of a tough scene down there. But we'll get to it. We've got to give the guys a grade for the season. They finished 5th on the ladder, gave us a good 40 minutes in the quarterfinal. Is that a pass grade for you for the Hurricanes?
Yeah, pretty good pass for me. I got them at B. I think so. They're about where I was expecting them to be. I thought they'd be the 4th best New Zealand team. Probably had played some good games. Had a few games that sort of got away in them. If they got a few more wins here and there, maybe they could have snuck into that 4th spot, which would have been different and maybe made their grade a bit higher. But they'll be pretty happy. Artie and Geordie were just their sort of reliable selves. Artie Severe's like best player in the world at the moment. Like, just we sort of had that question at the start of the season, who you'd start a franchise with, and I said Artie, and I'm definitely
Geordie.
Sticking with that. Yeah. So Morby's been a great find. He had a great game on the weekend, and he's been a try scoring machine for them. So be interesting to see what happens next year, whether they sort of stick with that Geordie at 12 and keep him at 15. yeah, shame that sort of the likes of Coles and Franks were able to sort of play a little bit more together. But maybe their problem was they were never quite able to settle on that starting 15, and it may have come back to sort of bite them in the end. So hopefully next season they'll be able to do that. But yeah, they'll be pretty happy with that. Obviously they'd love to be in the semis, but a B for me.
Fair enough. What are you doing, James?
Yeah, I went a B-, pretty similar, but they obviously had a really young squad, and I think they've developed a lot of these guys who are going to have big careers going forward. But I did feel like they had enough in that squad to be in the semis at least, potentially final. And thinking back to the season, obviously the loss to Moana played a massive role in the end. They win that game. They probably have a home semi. That could have been the difference than having to travel to Canberra and try and play the Brumbies over there, which is a tough ask. So, yeah, I feel like they could have done better than they did, but they've blooded a lot of new talent. So B- for me.
Yeah, for sure. I'm probably about the same. I wasn't expecting, a finals run or anything, or like a final run, sorry, from the Hurricanes this year. But so it's probably about right. I think I probably had them in the top 4, but I guess a lot of it's going to come down to 2023, right? You've got all these young guys, your Josh Morby's, Aidan Morgan seems to have, he seems like he's claimed the 10 jersey now. So if he can kick on in 2023, a few exciting young forwards, guys like Justin Sangster, TK Howden. So if they can sort of take another step next year, it'll probably make the season worth it. But yeah, I think the big thing, the Hurricanes, right, you already touched on it, James, they need to find a way to not be a 4-man team and be a 15-man team, because especially in the way modern rugby goes and All Black rest and stuff like that, you're not going to have Dane, Artie, Geordie and TJ all on the park all the time. So they need to sort of spread the burden a little bit there. But yeah, I'll say a C. I think it's about what, if you'd asked me before the season what the Hurricanes were going to do, I probably said 4th or 5th. So it's not a bad grade, but not it's dot ball and move on to the next delivery. So yeah, that's what I'll go with. I think that pretty much sums us up for the 4 quarterfinals and all the action last weekend, unless there's anything else you guys want to raise before we get stuck into a couple of really interesting semi-finals we got this week.
No, let's go for it.
Bring it on.
Yeah, all right, let's head down Orange Theory Stadium, 7:05 Friday evening. Obviously, the Chiefs heading down to Canterbury to take on the Crusaders. Crusaders opened, I think they were $1.30 on opening. Last I saw, they drifted out slightly, $1.35. The point start 7.5, so just getting a little bit more than a converted try head start from the bookies there. The Chiefs, obviously, the Chiefs went down to Orange Theory Stadium earlier in the year and did a bit of a smash and grab job in the last 5 minutes of that game, went away with the win, but then went back to FMG later in the year. The Crusaders ran all over them in the second half, cost me a kebab, which I still haven't paid you back for. I just remembered now.
Yeah,
so
true.
yeah,
We'll
get that back at some stage. But which of those 2 games do you think we can take more from as we look ahead to this one, James?
Oh, I think a little bit of both, but obviously the game down there, it's going to be similar this weekend. Obviously, night game. It's going to be wet, dewy. But I think what the Chiefs can take a lot out of that game was how long they were able to hold that ball for in that back end of that game and really put the Crusaders under pressure. So I think they'll be taking a lot of confidence out of that. I think that's what they're going to have to. They're going to have to really take it to the Crusaders. They're going to have to score tries, and I think they'll be trying to hold the ball for as long as they can. So yeah, it's going to be a good game. I think I'm not sure what end of that point start I'm going to be on, but we'll have to have a think.
Yeah,
Sell me, guys.
It's quite high, but Crusaders in Christchurch, apart from one loss.
They have literally never lost a home final in the history of Super Rugby, right?
So 24
yeah, something like that. There's definitely a 0 on the second half of that stat. So yeah, you were fairly bullish about them when they went up to Hamilton for the rematch. Are you pretty confident in the Crusaders again this week?
Yeah, I think so. Apart from the most recent loss, and the last 4 wins against the Chiefs in Christchurch have been by 15 points, 11 points, 22 and 13. So, which suggests that the points are probably about right, or it could be a little bit more.
It was pretty close heading into the last 10 minutes of the Super Rugby Aotearoa final as well last year, wasn't it? Before
it was there, so that must have been the 13. 13.1. Yeah. So, and then the Crusaders just did their thing. 11 to 20 came through, and then goes on that.
Had some couple of red card offences they didn't get red cards for. Was that the Crusaders doing their thing?
But they a few more stats. Crusaders have won 5 of the last 7. against the Chiefs. They've won. They've covered 5 of the last 13 at home, so they haven't been great at covering at home. But they have covered 9 of the last 14 against the Chiefs. The Chiefs haven't been a great covering team this year, covering 4 of the last 11. So, yeah, I could see it being really close as well, but I could also see Crusaders running away with it and just sneaking into that sort of 11 to 20 range there. But the Chiefs will take a lot of confidence from the fact they have been down there and won in Christchurch, and they'll know they just need to hold on to the ball and maybe put some pressure on the sort of set piece and maybe a certain person who's playing in the 10 jersey.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they do there. But I think we sort of touched on maybe the Chiefs only really having moments against the Waratahs. I think it's pretty fair to say the Crusaders have been the same this year, right? Like they haven't been dominating 80-minute performances like they have in the past. It's sort of
that game against the Chiefs probably one of the rare exceptions,
because that was
a couple of those blowouts against Australian teams. But when you think about the game against the Blues, that game against the Chiefs,
even like the game
against the Chiefs,
against the Hurricanes at the Cape Tin, where it was sort of
those games haven't been. Crusaders, they're clinical, but we do know what they're capable of and what they can do. So if they can get it all together, hopefully get a big crowd in. The crowds are a little bit disappointed on the weekend, so hopefully we get a few more people in this weekend. But we'll see. Yeah,
if they can't pick it up for this, it would be a shame. But is there maybe a key man for the Chiefs you got your eyes on, James? Someone who has a matchup he can exploit or needs to step up if they are going to win this thing?
I think a lot of it's going to rely on Bryn Gatlin, to be fair. I think he's been playing really well this season. He's been one of the guys who have really stood up, and his matchup with, obviously, Richie Mo'unga is going to be massive. Slippery conditions or Dewey ball, no matter what, it's going to be down there. So the way they kick, the way they play, kick versus run ratio is going to be massive. So, it's going to be interesting to see how he plays that.
If you were someone from the Chiefs got you on the blower and was asking for your input on the game plan, would you be suggesting maybe a bit of an old school Highlanders style one, kick it for the corners and make the Crusaders come out of their 22, or is that asking for trouble, giving the Crusaders in that back line too much possession?
Oh, I think everyone wants the territory at the moment, and just the way the game's playing. Once you've got that territory, you pretty much want to be holding that ball, because it's only a matter of time before someone gives away a penalty, or, like I've already spoken about, someone's falling and cops a shoulder, and then you've got a red card and a penalty. So I feel like once you've got the territory and you've got the ball, you're in control of the game at the moment. So how you do that, it's going to have to vary, but being able to win back contestable kicks and win those kicking battles is going to be really important. So it'll be interesting to see what approach the Chiefs take. But I think once they're in there, they'll be trying to hold the ball like they did last time and had a lot of success from.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Richard? Anyone you're sort of circling from the Chiefs if they are going to, or from the Crusaders as well? They have plenty of amazing players to. Yeah,
no shortage of it. From the Chiefs, I'd probably say just Richarlic, maybe. I think he's just sort of like obviously he just gets in there and does the dirty work, but it seemed to take him a couple of weeks to sort of get back, coming back from that injury. But I thought last week he was one of the best in the park. So if he can kind of do that dirty work, obviously the Crusaders have got no shortage of talent in there, type 5 in there, 4-pack on the whole. So it's going to be an incredible battle. Both the back lines and the 4-packs. I think we've talked about this battle of the 4-pack on both the meetings they've already had this season. So, but yeah, Richarlic, and I think Weber's another one who's been playing really well. So if he can kind of I don't know, get some quick ball and just sort of, I don't know, he just seems to be one of those players who can he's a niggler and gets his way around, picked up a couple of tries on the weekend. So if he can take some opportunities, the Chiefs are going to have a win. Yeah, but I just shout out to Gatlin as well. I think he's been really impressive. I thought, he's obviously.
And they've gone with the dual playmaker this week, Josh Ioane, named at fullback, which was, had plenty of success there for the Highlanders and Super Rugby Trans-Tasman last year. So interesting to see how I think that can't be a bad thing, sort of take a little bit of pressure off Bryn. And if they are going to look to play a bit of a kicking game and turn the Crusaders around, having that extra boot's going to come in handy.
Yeah, Josh Ioane's played a few notable performances against the Crusaders over the years. So
yeah, sure. Well, one area I'm going to be keeping an eye on, and you've got plenty of skin in this game, James, is the midfield. You got Quinta Paia, who was absolutely outstanding last week against the Waratahs. I thought maybe in a possible All Black 12 audition against David Havili. So very interested to see sort of who comes out on top of that battle. I think David, he's obviously got the experience on his side, and he's such a great defensive player. If he can shut Quinn down, and particularly his distribution game, which has been, I think, awesome the last few weeks. That I think who comes out on top there could come a long way. And then Alex Nankerville has been absolutely flying next to Quinn as well. So I think he had a great run in the game down in Christchurch, set up a try or scored a try. So yeah, maybe that's area the Chiefs can look to have some joy. But yeah, just more for just you got 4 great players there. Jack Goodhue is starting to look like Jack Goodhue of old ends. So yeah, just really interested to see how yeah, I don't know. You've obviously know a couple of those players particularly well, James. I'm sure you're expecting a big performance, particularly from David, right? He's a big game player. He should be fired up for this one.
Yeah, and I think that, like you say, the All Black coaches will be watching those matchups very, very closely. Some, like you mentioned, Nankerville, I think he's had an outstanding year this year. He must be within that frame. I thought Goodhue looked to be a little bit sluggish, I thought, last week. The Reds got on the outside of him pretty easy with Pattaya a couple of times, getting on his outside. So I thought they might have gone in or there at 13, but I'm expecting a big game from him this week, and he's going to bounce back. And yeah, I like the way Davey played in the weekend. He looked to be a bit more physical, still got his distribution skills, got his offload. He's a very skillful player and a big part of their leadership group as well. So he'll have a massive role in that result, no doubt.
Yeah. So maybe keep an eye on that Goodhue Nankerville matchup defensively if they can try and get Nankerville open outside, because the Chiefs, the way Nenai Saturo in particular has been playing, they've got plenty of firepower out wide. And then obviously we've talked about, I think it's probably the buzzword of Super Rugby this year, right? Depth. Both you sort of look at the backs the Crusaders have ready to roll off the bench. I think it's 3 All Blacks, right? Mitchell Drummond, Braden Ennor, and George Bridge back, but then Sam Kane lurking in jersey 20 for the Chiefs. So if the Chiefs can get a bit of ascendancy up front, I think the Crusaders maybe don't have the depth in the tight 5, especially coming off the bench they've had in the past. Obviously, Moody's out for the season. They don't have like 3 All Black props just sitting on the bench to roll on like they have in the past. So I think if the Chiefs can sort of get on top, they do have. Ollie Norris has been really good, and Bradley Slater, I'm a massive fan. I think he really adds a lot of impact coming off the bench. So I think that's maybe somewhere the Chiefs can have a bit of joy. But yeah, it's a tough one. I'm going to lean towards the plus, just because I think this is one where it's going to be decided by moments. You got so many great players on the park on both sides. It's really going to be, is it Lester Fainganuku? Is it Josh Ioane? Is it Brodie Retallick, who has that moment, who maybe breaks the game open with 20 to go? Because I am expecting it to be like even the game in Hamilton was close with 20 to go, and then that was the Crusaders game breakers who broke that one open. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have anything else to add on sort of how you see the outcome of this one.
As I said before, I think I'll be leaning towards the minus. But yeah, I could go. Yeah, it'll be. Wouldn't be surprised if it was a 1-2 point game as well. Maybe a little Crusaders 1-5. It'll be as well. On the side.
Have either of us swung your opinion at all, James?
Mate, the way I'd be playing this game is Crusaders 1-12 bonus back special.
Yeah,
I just think that's too good to refuse. I'm not sure what exactly they're paying 1-12, but that would be the way to go, because I don't think it's going to be a 13+ game. 290.
Yeah,
you're kidding me. That's an absolute steal. Get on that one, and you're pretty safe if it blows out. And only the Chiefs sneaking home will beat you. But 290, I'd be all over that one.
Yeah, especially as we've said already, the Crusaders never lost a final at home ever, so you got to feel pretty good being on their side. Yeah, but I'm going to back the Chiefs to make history. I think they get it. It's a Brad Weber from the base of the ruck in the 80th minute finds Quintapaya coming down the inside, and then you got big wide ball out to Nenai Saturo in the corner, same as the regular season game down there. The Chiefs win it by 3. So, but yeah, this could go either way, right? I'm just so excited for this game. But yeah, another game that looks to be pretty mouth-watering. I was surprised to see the odds as wide for this one as they were actually at Eden Park on Saturday evening. The Blues $1.20 in the head-to-head market and 12.5 point favourites. Like, obviously the Blues very, very good at rugby this season. We also what they did to the Highlanders in that last 60. But if you're the Brumbies fan or Brumbies coaching staff looking at this number, you've got to be a bit shocked, right, James?
Yeah, I was surprised to see the point start so big. To be honest, I'll be all over that 12.5, is it still? So I still think the Blues will win, but I think it's going to be incredibly close, a little bit like the last time they met up. Real small margins are going to win this. I still think the Blues have too much strike power to not win. I still think they'll win, but I do think it's going to come down to one big moment in the game, which is probably going to be Beauden Barrett.
Yeah, the way he's playing footy at the moment, right? It seems like you're just not going to stop him from breaking a couple of tackles and running away from the defence for 80 minutes. He's obviously going to be a key player. I actually thought, last time they played in Canberra, it went down to the wire and the Brumbies probably should have won it aside from that drop goal. But the Blues dominated territory and possession. Like, they were camped in the Brumbies 22 the entire first half. Like, that could have been a 15-point game at half time. I don't know, like, what you took from that game, Richard, but you sort of thinking maybe the Blues should have won that by more, and this could,
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think I did the week after that game, I had the stats up. I think the territory and position were like 75-80% or something like that first half towards the Blues. So they should have won it by a lot more. And the Brumbies sort of really showed their, how mentally tough they are and how they can just defend and play to that sort of that game plan. So. The Blues will be aware of that, and they might have to have a few more tricks up their sleeve. I think I was on Brumbies halftime, Blues full time in that game, and it should have been that, but then the Bowden Barrett scored that try.
Once again, Bowden was the one who sort of broke the game open there. So
that Bowden Barrett try in the weekend was just the most classic Bodie. The little kind of push. It wasn't even a fend. It's kind of just like he pushes them away, and then he just puts his head down.
Brought back memories of when he scored 4 against the Wallabies, Eden Park. It was the exact same sort of that angling run underneath the posts.
Yeah, I thought the same though. I think I was very surprised they're 12.5-point favourites. I think the Brumbies have been there's been a lot of disrespect towards the Brumbies in the market
from this podcast as well.
Not from me.
Yeah.
I think like they were underdogs for all 3 of those games they won against the New Zealand teams, and then I think they were 6.5-point underdogs when these teams last met. So I'm more than happy to jump on that. The plus in this game, I think it'll be a lot closer. Could there have been upset? Yeah. I mean, if they can sort of stick to their game plan and the Blues can, have a opening 20, 30 minutes like they did against the Highlanders, I'm sure Liam McDonald will be ensuring that doesn't happen again. But I wouldn't be surprised to an upset. So
fair enough. One other thing you got to be pretty happy about on the Brumbies side of things is Rob Valentini back in the 8 jersey. He missed that sort of 3-game losing streak they had against the Blues, Crusaders, and Moana Pacifica towards the end of the season. Just how big an in is he for the Brumbies, do you think, James? He's been huge for them all season, right?
Yeah, he has. He's a massive body. And I think one thing that the Brumbies do is they just hammer the breakdown. And you saw that in the Hurricanes game in the weekend. The Hurricanes got smashed at that breakdown, lots of turnovers from counter-rucking. And the Blues do the same thing. So this game is going to be so intense at the breakdown. I think there's going to be a lot of slow ball and teams are going to have to resort to kicking. But that breakdown battle is going to be very, very intense. There's not going to be any easy ball for either side because the Blues do it as well. I think they're both the best teams at the breakdown in terms of contesting possession at pretty much every breakdown. So, yeah, man, it's going to be a real battle in there.
Which is an interesting thing because it seems like the trend sort of in rugby these days, it's more going to that zero ruck and everyone wants to get their defence set and flying up. But to see these two teams sort of going against the grain and having so much success with it, maybe something to hopefully, because I do love that sort of, when it's just complete chaos in there and the ball's shooting out and all over the place and you got halfbacks running back and chasing it. It is good to watch. So, yeah, it's good to see what they've both been able to do there. But are we all sort of, I get the sense, we're giving the Brumbies a chance, but we're all probably, push comes to shove, going to back the Blues in a close one? Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that Blues 1-12 again. I think make the most of that money back special. A couple of good options for you.
Come up in our best bet section very shortly.
Love it.
Yeah. Any other maybe players or matchups to watch or anything before we move on to best bets from this game?
Oh, there's plenty. Looking forward to the battle of the halfbacks and the battle of the fives. Yeah, I think a lot of CEOs really stepped up. But you saw when he was out for a week or two, and the Brumbies very much. I think it was in that Crusaders game, and just the first half, the game plans went out the window. So, and Nick White really controls it well. So, and Christie's been playing brilliantly. There's plenty of sort of talk in the moment about these halfbacks.
Yeah,
who's going to be these halfbacks? Christie's arguably the sort of form halfback of the sort of 4 or 5 New Zealand ones that are really in with the shot of the All Blacks, and obviously Bodie. It's Bodie.
Yeah.
So I think there'll be a lot to be excited there. Yeah, and the back rows as well. Actually, I think with Valentini back, it really adds just some size and some strength. And
I was really
Flipper
impressed with
and-
Hoskins Tutu last week. I
Yeah,
thought
he
he
was
had an
huge.
awesome game.
Yeah.
He was really disruptive at breakdown time. So
especially with no with Dalton Buckley
yeah,
out,
which
so-
is a big loss for the Blues. So if Hoskins can do that again against this Brumbies pack, that'll be, I think, something the All Black selectors would be very happy to see as we head into the
especially
Island series.
Valentini, that'd be a great, great battle.
Get them in the Fiji team together.
Okay.
Love to see that. Anything else you want to touch on, James? Or
I guess another big part of this game is going to be the set piece, the rolling maul. I think from memory, the Brumbies scored two rolling maul tries against the Blues last time. So they'll be sniffing a little bit of blood there. And if they start getting that going, it will make it tough for the Blues. And obviously scrum time, I'm not sure what happened last weekend, but the Highlanders scrum pumped the Blues scrum. So I'm not sure if the Brumbies will see an opportunity there as well. It's not something I expected to see in that game, but the Groots seem to be getting the better of offer in that game. So that's going to be an interesting battle as well. Once you're getting pumped at the scrum time, it can be hard to win a game, and especially in finals footy, especially against the Brumbies, who will be more than happy to kick that corner and maul again till the next penalty and continue that process. So Blues will definitely need to compete and hold their own at set piece at least.
yeah, and that's what we're thinking, right? Like if the Brumbies get a sniff of blood at breakdown time or the set piece, they're just going to go and pick at that, right? So the Blues, I'm sure that there'll be plenty of time spent on the scrum machine this week because they've got a great scrum as well. So that's somewhere the Blues, not that, like, I mean, they've got All Black packs, All Black props coming out their ears, the Blues, so they should be able to get it sorted. But yeah, so it's certainly something to keep. If they do get a bit of ascendancy early on, the Brumbies there, that's something that might raise a couple of alarm bells in that Blues coaching box. But plenty to keep an eye on. And I'm glad you sort of touched on that, James, because we also have a bunch of Waddle power plays lined up for the semi-finals just before we get to best bets. And one that's jumped out to me straight away is both games to be won by 1 to 12 points at $3. I think I think we're all pretty keen on Blues 1 to 12. You've said Crusaders 1 to 12 looks a nice bet. So $3 for that. And then you've got the other side of things. So if the Brumbies or Chiefs do spring an upset, I don't think any of it.
It won't be 13
None of us are backing them by 13 plus. So that's certainly one I'd be keeping an eye out for. And we'll also just touch on there's the most points handicap market in the Waddle power plays. The 4 goal kickers: Stephen Peritheta, Richie Mo'unga, Bryn Gatlin, Noah Lolesio. You can get $3.75 for each of them. Richie Mo'unga has been given a half-point head start against Peritheta. Bryn Gatlin 4 points, and Noah Lolesio 5.5. As the king of the player players, James, which of those 4 jumped out to you?
I found that a really tough one. I felt like the point start made it really niggly, but I would probably be leaning towards Richie Mo'unga with the 0.5. I feel like if any team's going to put on a big margin, I think it might be a big score. It might be the Crusaders, and he obviously scored last week. He's looking dangerous with the ball in hand. He'll kick his penalties. He'll kick his conversions. So, I'll be leaning towards that, but not overly confident.
How about you, Richard?
I might go with Lolesio, to be honest. Just with
yeah.
the extra few points. 4.5, is it? 5.5. 5.5.
Yeah,
Yeah,
5.5.
Well, he's a great kicker. You know, he was kicking them from everywhere last week, and he's had a couple of sort of weeks. I think he would have been about 6 or 7 last week, and he's had a couple of weeks where he's kicked very high percent. So if the Brumbies play their game, get a few penalties, he might just click up there a bit, and we'll see.
I'm just going to play with a straight back. I'll take the favourite, Peritheta. I think he's probably the best bet out of all 4 of them to score a try, right? Playing at fullback, probably the team that's expected to score the most points. And I think, the Blues he's kicking well. The Blues should get plenty of opportunities to turn this. But
So Gatlin wins.
we'll just we'll get that clip up for social.
We've narrowed it down for the punter. Gatlin, get on it.
Yeah, congratulations, punters. There's your pick and go special of the week. But we will move on. I've already kept everyone too long again. So amazing how the podcast loses all sort of structure when I'm back in the host seat. But we'll get some best bets before we go. James, do you want to? I'll give you the honours as the guest. Do you want to kick us off with your best bet for Super Rugby semi-finals?
Oh, my best bet. I'm going to go with those 1 to 12 bets. I'm going to go Crusaders 1 to 12. Best bet of the weekend. $2.90. Unbelievable. Money back special.
If you're listening, Paul Marty, that's a price for a best bet, not $1.12 or whatever the nonsense has been the last couple of weeks. And how about you, Richard? What's your best bet this weekend?
I'm going to go with Will Jordan to score a try, $1.85.
Nice.
Guys, joint top. I was tossing up between him and Fainga'anuku. But yeah, I mean, I think you could probably pretty safely put both of them in a little same game multi and get a nice little collect there. But yeah, I think it was cool.
We got a bit of
Very
same game
short.
time going for the. What's that, James?
Very short, eh? I thought $1.75 was very short for a semi final. I'm not.
Yeah.
You obviously
Well, I did
know
think it was
something
short,
I
but-
don't, but no
Oh,
value
just-
there.
Just scores tries.
That is.
He
Oh,
does.
it's not about
He's
it.
He's a freakish try scorer, that's for sure.
I'm also going for a try scorer, but man, we've mentioned several times on this podcast already, Falafying is getting across the line at some stage on the end of a rolling ball or something. So I don't know. I think we've got a price up at this stage, but he was $2.25 last week, which was just a gift from the gods. So I loaded up.
Did seen his on Friday, and that was his best bet.
Yeah,
So.
I'd only had about 4 Fiji golds in the Corrie Lounge on the way over already. So yeah, don't think they were the most accurate, but I did get them in. So I'm going to double down on Falafying to score a try. I'll lead us off with a value bet as well. I did actually have Chiefs halftime full time written down as my value bet. I think if the Chiefs can get their nose ahead, they've got enough depth on the bench to keep having guys like Sam Cane coming off the bench trying to hold on to a lead is never a bad thing. So I think that is a good shout. But I'm going to change it now because I've seen that both games to be won by 1-12 Waddle power play, and that's great. That's clear value bet of the week. $3 for that one. Love that. So that's what I'm going to go for. How about you, Richard?
I'm going to go for the try bet in the Blues Brumbies game. Either team by 7.5 or under, $3.20.
Very nice.
Yeah,
that's.
I think they'll be close, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of an upset there. So, yeah.
How about you, James? You've already given us some pretty good value with your best bet, but is there anything else you want to shout out?
This one's even better. This is a Waddle power play as well, but it's a lead change in the last 5 minutes of either game, $3.50. So I'm like you guys. I think both games are going to be extremely close. 5 minutes that last period, I think there's going to be a lead change in at least one of those games. So $3.50, I'm all over that one.
Another Bodie drop goal maybe to get the Blues home?
Potentially, or, we've spoken about Crusaders try, might be a Chiefs try, but I think both games are going to be close coming into that last 10 minutes, and there'll be a lead change in that last 5 in one of those games. And you get double interest in both games. And if it doesn't happen the first one, you're still riding home that second game. So you get your money's worth.
Sure. And I don't know if you have the best underdog section, but I think we're both all pretty keen on both favourites. I will take the Chiefs at $3. I won't force you guys to throw an underdog in the ring this week, given we've only got 2. But are you guys going to have a little nibble on either underdog?
I'll have a wee nibble on the Brumbies.
Okay. Yeah. About you, James?
I think the better chance is the Chiefs, but I don't think they'll win.
Right.
So, yeah.
Can't sell you on that one. We can lock you in for Crusaders 1-12 as your favourite winning team in margin for the Super Rugby bonus back promotion, though, which is in play again.
Yeah, or the Blues 1-12. I like them both. So, get on both of those, I reckon.
Yeah, no, I had Blues 1-12 written down there. What's your?
Crusaders 1-12.
Nice
So,
one.
A little multi there.
And for final league, we've got Overball Multi-Buster going strong as always. You'll have to chuck a couple of NRL leagues or something in this week, but I'm going with Leicester Fainga'anuku to score a try anytime as my multi-anchor because the man just scores tries. And
as I said before, I'm in with Jordan. And
those two, and then maybe the Crusaders head-to-head or something for a little same game claim as well. Couldn't talk you out of that.
Yeah,
but,
I just got Crusaders head-to-head in mine. Yeah,
fair enough.
I don't think they'll lose. $12.35 now.
What's going on in all your multis this week, James?
Can my Waddle value power play go in as a multi-anchor because it's a good thing? $3.50. It's probably better than I did have down Blues head-to-head, but $1.20. I feel like you're probably a better chance with the $3.50 anyway. So
no, mate, if you're shouting out a $3.50 multi-anchor, I'll definitely let you have that one. So we can, for sure.
Hopefully, listening.
No, he's turned the podcast off well before this after hearing all this sort of value being thrown out. It's given him a nosebleed. But no, that pretty much does us for the week. We'll get our picks against the line and everything later on, but I think everyone knows where we're leaning. We'll get some tips out on social and all that. So plenty to look forward to. Just talking about those 2 games, I think we're in for a couple of real tight encounters and should hopefully have a couple of epic finishes. James's last lead change power play will hopefully get up for us as well. So a lot to look forward to this weekend. We'll be back again next week. I'm not quite sure exactly what the lineup will be. Paul Moati's at the judiciary appealing a suspension, so he might have made his way back into a seat by this time next week. But we will certainly be back this time next week to preview what should be a pretty exciting Super Rugby Pacific final. So until next week, enjoy all the footy, and we'll be back to talk to you in 7 days. Cheers for joining us, lads.
No worries. Appreciate it.
Likewise, have a good weekend, punters.